Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Tenny, and I'm your host for AGBU YP Live, a virtual series where we travel to different cities around the world to meet our fellow young professionals. Today, we are coming to you in partnership with the global AGBU community for another special edition of YP Live, Peace for Armenians, Understanding the War in Artsakh. As difficult as it is to imagine the current situation in Artsakh, why it's happening, and what those on the front lines are experiencing, I have to say, I am truly proud to be an Armenian, and I am inspired by our entire community. These past few weeks, I have seen the global Armenian community come together in peaceful protest, on social media, and with fundraising in a way I could have never imagined. And whether you're an Armenian that lives in Armenia or Artsakh, has friends or family on the front lines, or lives in the diaspora, even though we are all physically in different places, all of our hearts and spirits are together right now. With that, our episode today will follow a town hall format, as we have young professionals joining us from around the world, as well as in Armenia and Artsakh, so we can learn and come together even more. Without further ado, I would like to introduce one of our partners for this episode, David Ojakian, the chair of AGBU Young Professionals Northern California, to help kick off our episode. David?
Thank you, Tenny. It's hard to believe that here we are just a month later after our YP Live about Lebanon, and we're faced with another crisis with war in our homeland. There are no words to describe the emotions we've been feeling over the past 3 weeks. Yet, as you mentioned, Tenny, we have seen our entire global Armenian nation unite in support of Artsakh, and we are reminded of our faith, of our history of survival and resilience. We will continue to do our part to help and support our brothers and sisters in Artsakh. I too would like to thank everyone involved in organizing this event with such quick turnaround. Thank you, YPLA, for your leadership, and to Hanine for her help and support rallying all the YPs, to Anita and Sarian and the entire central office team for all of their support, and a special thank you to Dr. Yervan Zorian, who was instrumental in helping bring together our impressive panel. And of course, we're grateful for our panelists for joining us during this difficult time, many of whom are on the ground in Artsakh right now. We're proud to once again partner with AGBU Silicon Valley chapter, and as YP Live continues to grow, for the first time ever, we're going to have YPs from around the world who will be asking questions live of our panel about the situation in Artsakh now and looking forward. Now I'd like to introduce Dr. Yervan Zorian. He's AGBU Central Board Member and Chair of AGBU Silicon Valley Chapter, for a few words and to introduce our panel today. Dr. Zorian.
Thank you, David. Welcome to this very special episode. After almost 30 years, history repeats itself again on our homeland, on a particular part of our homeland, on Artsakh. We have a difference though. The new part of it is that, first of all, we have a new generation, new youth here that has not seen such struggle before. So they're here to witness it for the first time, like Tenny, like David, fully committed, fully dedicated to our nation. They're bringing their participation in this. We also have new ways of disseminating information. The new media that we are seeing today, massively reaching every single person. Every one of you is a journalist today. So today we wanted to do the following. We wanted to move a little bit further than the day-to-day newsy items that we're seeing these days, but to double click and go deeper a little bit to understand the background, to understand the Artsakh issue from a history perspective, from a culture perspective, from human rights, from humanitarian aid, diplomacy, and so on. That's why we selected an esteemed set of panelists that will come to them in a second. But before that, I'd like to add my thanks to David, to the names that David mentioned, to the teams that David mentioned, all the YPs around the world that exceptionally are bringing their direct contribution to the panel today. I'd like also, in addition, to thank Vasken Yakubian, the chairman or the president of AGBU Armenia, Lara Setragian, who helped us with the questionnaires today, as well as I'd like to thank ABC, the Armenian Virtual College, who are helping us on the technology side, on the technical side. By the way, in parentheses, if we want to know more with visuals about what's going on in terms of Armenian history, in terms of understanding that the Artsakh history is an integral part of Armenian history throughout the ages. ABC is running a number of virtual visual manners. We have, you can check its public website, its Facebook page, and so on. That will also help us to see things in a multimedia manner. Now back to the actual discussion. The actual discussion here today will be with an esteemed set of panelists coming from Armenia, from Artsakh, and from Diaspora. I'll go alphabetically, but by naming them, we don't have the time, unfortunately, to go through the long bios and huge amount of work that each one of them do, because they're already very well known to us. David Babayan is a well-known Artsakh politician who is with us today. He is the head of the and the founder of the Artsakh Conservative Party. He has been with the Artsakh government in different positions. Currently, he is the advisor of the president of the Artsakh Republic on foreign relations. Joining us from Stepanakert. Thanks a lot, Mr. Babayan. The second person alphabetically will be Antanik Gulghinian. Antanik is in Silicon Valley. He has been in the high-tech industry, studied in Armenia. I remember he worked at Synopsys Armenia even. And today in Silicon Valley, after several positions, he is a staff engineer at Facebook. He will bring us the technology angle of social media and advise us what to do and what not to do. The third on my alphabetical list is Ms. Lilith Makuns. Ms. Lilith Makuns is again well known to us. She has been the Minister of Culture. She's currently member of the parliament and especially the head of My Step Alliance faction in the parliament. Finally, the ombudsman of Artsakh, Artak Beklarian, who was announced to be on our panel, unfortunately, due to his other commitments, will not be able to join us today. Instead, we are pleased to have Mr. Rupen Melikian, who is the previous Human Rights Ombudsman of Republic of Artsakh. He has covered that position between 2016 and 18. All of our panelists, by the way, do have academic positions, are affiliated with different universities. I will not go through them, but rather I will go and introduce our very capable moderator who will be running our session today. That is Hovhannes Nigorosyan. Hovhannes is a political scientist, international security expert, and analyst, and currently affiliated with AGBU Armenia. Passing on to Hovhannes, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zoryan, and everyone joining us at various time zones. I'm even afraid to think of the variety of time zones that you are joining us with. To kick off, really, I would suggest to cut to the bone and start by asking all of our four panelists a kickoff question to warm up. To all of you or to those that want to pick it up. We all these days, as the 22nd day of the armed conflict of the war on the border, we do not cease to think about the victory and work for the victory. My question to all of you is, what will define our victory? How will we achieve a state of peace in the region, and particularly for the Republic of Artsakh? Whoever wants to go first, unmute yourself and go ahead.
Maybe I should go first. Thank you, Hovhannes. Hi, everyone. Happy to join the panel and be able to introduce the developments in Artsakh and the undertakings of Armenia in that connection. But to tackle the question that you, Hovhannes, posed, it really much depends on what kind of a conflict we are in. So the definition of the conflict and the purpose of the foe country that is engaged in the conflict and their aims and the victory are pretty much connected with each other. So basically, it pretty much depends on the formulation of the conflict. Previously, and that's, I'm going to pose that in my, during the next question probably, But previously, we would think that the conflict has one definition, one formulation, but now we are facing a situation when it's completely different. So in my view, the victory is when the country that caused the aggression, that the aggressive country doesn't reach its aim. And that's the first thing that we can post. But of course, we can go further. So that's the first thing for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Lilith. I cannot agree more. Anyone else on the panel wants to tackle this one?
Hi, everyone. Maybe I will very short introduce my view on that issue. What is victory? First of all, I'd like to apologize on behalf of Mr. Beglarian, my colleague, who was not able to join the panel. Indeed, he is now in Stepanakert with very important missions. And I'm constantly in contact with Mr. Beglarian. I'm not only a former human rights ombudsman of Artsakh, but also I never quitted to take notes of what is happening there from human rights perspective. So I have been to Stepanakert for a couple of times during this period of time. So I can talk on human rights as a person who saw everything with his own eyes. So what is victory? I believe from human rights perspective, we need to be sure, and we need to assure people living in Artsakh that their security is not in danger. For a very long period of time, we always knew that everyday war as the ultimate danger to lives, to the health, and to the well-being of all people living, peaceful people living in Artsakh will pose to the danger. And now the large scale, the full scale war broke out. So I believe that one of the aspects of victory is being sure and to ensure those people living there that it will never ever will happen again. And maybe we can turn this human rights issue into a political issue and talk about some kind of recognition of Artsakh or other international security safeguards and standards. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruben. I'm sure we will have a chance to speak about recognition down the road. David, do you want to pick up this question, Mr. David Babayan?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. You see, first of all, I would like to greet all of you from Artsakh and say that we are standing and we are going to stand till the end. When we are talking about victory, we have to understand and try to comprehend what is victory in general. There is no final victory. Victory is something in progress. You have to distinguish short-term victory, medium-term victory, long-term victory. And you have to also try to define victory, depending on the situation where you are, you see? And we always have to think, try to understand all our challenges, with whom we are fighting, what we consider to be victory, who are our enemies. For example, right now, who are our enemies? Well, there are Turkey, Azerbaijan terrorists, but are they the only enemies? I think that these are a very strong, very, clever, very aggressive and very dangerous enemies. But we have also another enemy, ourselves, our egoism, our unprofessional manner, you know, our inconsistency, all those things. This is the strongest enemy we ever had in our history. So when we are talking about victory, we have to understand that if we want to gain victory against foreign enemy, invaders, it's one thing. But in order to gain such victory, you have to work, you have to have professional team, you have to have patriotic people, because all other things are just, you know, words and words and words. Now we are in a very difficult situation, very difficult. So what is victory for us? Somebody may say salvation, another may say, just crashing the enemy. Somebody may say we have to somehow ignite our people, even if the front line and all those developments will not be in our favor, because Armenian people should struggle for a long period of time. This is not the final and the only struggle. So it's a very complicated thing. I don't want to, you know, concentrate on these philosophical things and all those, stuff which is now not necessary. Now we have to, shrink the basis of analysis. Now we have only one thing to do: to sustain, to save lives. Why we came to such kind of situation? We have to analyze it later on. Maybe, make some very, very difficult steps, very painful. But what we have, I don't want, to always have the same approach as we always did in history, that somebody else is guilty for what happened. So victory, if you analyze yourself and understand what is the basis of your failure, what is the basis of your strengths. So it's a very complicated thing. Right now we have only one thing to do, to perform, is to sustain and save this piece of land, because the ordeal it's indeed an ordeal. It's a very difficult, very, to some extent, historical challenge. This is why I would like all of you to understand one thing. We have nothing to lose, irrespective of the result. And this is our last stand. And we are going to stand till the end. Later on, you will have to decide. We don't know what will be the result. Of course, we are going to stand till the end. But anyway, victory should be analyzed in a time framework, very long-term perspective. This is my vision.
Thank you, Davidjan. This is motivational enough for us to dive down the road on so many questions that I've been receiving from our participants today, the YPs around the world. And these questions, I think, will help us to understand how this victory will be built down the road. So now I'm going to turn to our participants to ask their questions. Please, when I call your name, identify yourself, where you are from, and to whom you're asking your question. The first one, because future is going to be female anyways, I'm going to revert to Rita from Los Angeles. Rita, if you please come up and ask the question you have, identifying yourself and calling the panelists you are addressing to. Please.
Hello, my name is Rita. I'm joining from Los Angeles, and I'd also like to extend my deep thank yous for sharing your time to help answer our questions and build context for everybody around the world. Mr. Babayan, could you help provide us with a historical overview of the situation in Artsakh and how we've gotten to this point or in this position? Thank you.
Well, you see, we live in a very complicated geopolitical region where geopolitical struggle has been very active for many decades. This is very important to understand the imperatives of your adversaries, of your enemies, the imperative of your friends, the imperative of your brother countries, your potential, all of the negative and positives, sides and events you have to face. The Artsakh issue, we talk about that during our, meetings in the Armenian Virtual College. Today, of course, it's maybe not appropriate to talk about all those things, but I can say one thing. This problem was generated not by local trends. It's international, because it was the result of global geopolitical competition between the Western powers, Russian Empire, and Turkish Empire, Ottoman Empire. So this conflict was actually the result of this competition, because I can show you maybe on the map, let me try to find it. So I think it will be easier for you to look at these kind of things. Let me try to find it.
Maybe you can go on, Davidjan, and then
yeah. No, I have already found this. Don't worry. If you have time, because we don't know when we are going to meet, or etc. etc. Anyway, let me.
We're going to meet after the victory.
Victory, of course, after the victory, definitely. So, guys, do you see what I'm demonstrating?
Not really.
Not really. Let me. I think something is wrong with this. Okay, now, do we see now?
No.
What about now? Let me find it.
Well, we can see it now.
Can you see? Can you see the maps?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this was the beginning, guys. So it was. This is Ottoman Empire when it actually at the highest. During the zenith of Ottoman Empire. You see, it was a gigantic state. The Black Sea was like an internal lake. The Red Sea was internal lake. This is the Mediterranean. Much of the Mediterranean was controlled by the Ottomans. So, and after that, the empire started to shrink. The Russians took some part, the Europeans took other parts. This is already the 19th century Ottoman Empire. And this was the 20th century Ottoman Empire. Actually, it lost all its possessions in Africa, in Europe, in Eastern Europe. And it always wanted to go back, to take back all the possessions it had. So it wanted to come to this kind of situation. What is more, the European empires were very much afraid that the Russian Empire and Turkish Empire could become strategic allies. This was just a terrifying thing, because in that case, they could even take India, Africa. So it was just a nightmare for the Western countries. And so they decided to elaborate such a strategy which would exclude this kind of possibility, even in theoretical, not only in practical, but even in theoretical fields. And they invented the idea of pan-Turkism, the union between all the Turkic-speaking people, because it wasn't a Turkish idea, it was European idea. Very interesting. Don't go back to take your possessions, go and take this gigantic territory. You see? And this was indeed a very, very strong idea, very simple, but also very strong, because the logic was very much simple. Why you should go and take, let's say, territories here, if you can go and take this territory? You see, at that time, the Armenian people, neither the elite nor, I don't know, people understood all the danger of this, ideology, because Armenian people ethnically separated the Turks of Anatolia from the rest of the Turkey, this space. And the genocide happened in 1915, because in 1914, the war started. And the idea of pan-Turkism was, had actually two main imperatives. One is to direct Turkish expansion against Russia and Iran, and the second, to divide the Muslim world, because Turkey was, as a Sunni Muslim country, Turkish Sultan was also the leader of Sunni Muslims, you see? And if you shrink your state idea from pan-Islamism to pan-Turkism, this means that the rest of Muslim world, Arabs and other people, will be out of this thing. So this was also good for expanding their interest and colonial power to the former Ottoman possessions. So the genocide happened. But the Turks wanted to replace this, and they wanted to combine the idea of pan-Turkism and pan-Islamism. For this very reason, the key component was to destroy Iran. Why Iran? Because Iran, as
sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Babayan. So basically, to wrap it up in the next Mission Impossible, to wrap it up in the next 30 to 40 seconds, basically what you're suggesting is that there is an ideological grounds for also Turkey's involvement and probably guidance of Azerbaijan in this fight against Republic of Artsakh and Armenia.
In 40 seconds, we have to understand what's going on to be
Please.
able. So they wanted to take out Iran because it separated two Sunni Muslim spaces. For this very reason, they actually invented the idea of Azerbaijan, because Azerbaijan, historical Azerbaijan, not this one which we have, was for centuries the soul and heart of Iran. And they also wanted to take Baku oil. The combination happened. They created artificial state of Azerbaijan in the Caucasus. This was the key point in Karabakh conflict. When the new state emerged, it wanted to claim as much territories as possible. So this was the result of Karabakh movement, the Karabakh conflict in general. And now we have the same thing. Exactly the same thing is happening after 100 years, because Turkish advance and Turkish penetration into the Transcaucasus region was actually closed in 1920. Now they have penetrated, and they don't have the only goal to destroy Artsakh. This is one of their goals. The second goal was to strengthen their position in the Transcaucasus or Southern Caucasus, to later on materialize their ideology. So, and we're at the crossroads of this kind of very big regional, maybe global intentions. So we have to understand this and just try to foresee what will happen. What is their red line? Where they are going to stop?
Thank you, Mr. Babayan, for this quick historical explanation. The second one I have on my list is Tatiana. Tatiana, if you can introduce yourself real quick and name the panelists that you are going to ask your question to. Please keep it brief and concise. Go ahead. Thank you.
Hi, this is Tatiana. I'm in London, and my question is to Lilith Makuns. What I wanted to know is, how is the government of Armenia responding to the emerging humanitarian needs of refugees? And are there any successful attempts to work with the international donor community around this?
Thank you, Tatiana. Well, first of all, the government of Armenia is responding in different dimensions. We are assisting our friends, our brothers and sisters in Artsakh by means of volunteers that go to Artsakh to defend the Artsakhi Armenians and the Artsakhi border. This is the first thing, this is the first reaction that was from the Armenian side. Another thing is, of course, first of all, we need to mention that the Armenians in Artsakh are still in all the villages and in the towns and in the capital of Artsakh, and they still live there. Those who came to Armenia, their number is not big. Those who came to Armenia, of course, the government takes care, and besides the government, also the Armenian people are giving shelters and are assisting them in a very united manner. But along with that, one of the most important things that we are doing right now is presenting the world the essence of the conflict, of the issue, because what the essence of the conflict is not what Azerbaijan has been trying to introduce and to present to the international community by saying that they have only claims, territorial claims, but the engagement of Turkey into the conflict, not simply the assistance of Turkey to Azerbaijan, but its direct engagement, shows that Azerbaijan and Turkey do not refuse from genocidal policy that David Babayan was talking about a couple of minutes ago. Several countries, including OSCE Minsk Group co-chair countries, have admitted that Turkey is directly engaged in military operations and military actions and has provoked itself those actions. Moreover, Russia, Iran, France, and other countries have admitted that there are mercenaries from Syria, Iraq, Libya, not Iraq, sorry, Syria, Libya, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. And our aim and our target is to show that this genocidal policy is a direct threat, not only to the South Caucasus region, but also to the broader region, including Europe. And those countries that are geographically far from the conflict zone right now, they are not in no way guaranteed that the problem, the expansion policy that Turkey has is not going to reach to them, and it's not going to touch them. Because it's obvious that all of the developments taking place in Artsakh should be reviewed in the context of the Turkish policy in the Mediterranean, in Syria, in Iraq, in relations with Greece and Cyprus. And Europe needs to assess the situation properly. And this is our biggest aim, to deliver this message. Otherwise, the expansion policy is going to inevitably affect the countries that are geographically far from Armenia. But it's also important to note that this is a direct existential threat to the Armenians living in Artsakh. It's been 22 days already that the Armenians in Artsakh, in Nagorno-Karabakh, are defending their right to live, are defending themselves from cluster munitions, from drones and other banned weapons used against civilians. And that is the reason that we are saying that whatever Azerbaijan is claiming is not true, because genocide is not only killing civilians, including, which they now implement and do, but also their displacement, which they encourage and do very, very persistently. And that's the reason, and they do it, by the way, we're talking about deliberate targeting and deliberate killing of the civilians. And that's why we are now delivering the message to the world, to the Minsk Group co-chairs and to the other countries, that remedial recognition is the most important thing now for Armenians in Artsakh if we want to keep the region safe and secure, and not only Artsakh but also the region and also the wider region. Thank you.
Thank you, Lilith, for also reminding us about this question of remedial secession, remedial sovereignty. I'm sure that we will discuss it down the road, including...
Sorry to interrupt you. I want to highlight and underscore that we are talking about remedial recognition, because Artsakhi people Artsakh people. The secession took place when the Soviet Union collapsed. So we're talking about remedial recognition. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. I just had my academic hat for a second to hint that the term is remedial secession. That's the internationally accepted, and then everything else is what we have to, tailor to our situation. And this is, we will discuss having Ruben Melikian on board from the human rights perspective also. The next name I have on my list that had a question to ask is Diego. Diego, if you can unmute yourself and go forward, please.
Hi to everyone. I'm Diego Aloyan from Santiago de Chile. And this is a question for Ruben. Since September 27, the official social media channels of the Office of the Ombudsman of Artsakh have provided clear evidence of Azeri and Turkish war crimes, above many, heavy military targeting of peaceful Armenian civilians in cities and towns of Armenia and Artsakh. And you often tweet the hashtag "Don't Be Blind." What is your plea to the international community? Thank you.
Here we go into remedial recognition. Ruben, go ahead.
Well, let's start with the hashtag "Don't Be Blind." That's a hashtag that started on October 4th, so it was only 8th day of the war when Stepanakert were harshly shelled by Azerbaijan, and I was there, and Mr. Artsakh Beglarian, who himself has an issue with seaside, he said, look, people are blind. People are blind because nobody is talking about the situation. Nobody is talking about the civilian deaths. By the way, the death toll already reached 36 by yesterday. Hundreds of seriously injured people, civilians in Artsakh. When I talk about 36, it's only civilians. I'm not talking about people who are defending our homeland. So he started this hashtag, and unfortunately, the world is still blind, and still the world didn't open the eyes. I would, taking this opportunity, ask everybody who is hearing, who is listening to us, to look at the information and the content that Human Rights Ombudsman of Artsakh, as well as Human Rights Ombudsman of Armenia, is providing to society by social media, by their websites, because there are very important arguments in this, let's say, information war. There are many, not only words, but also short videos. Some of them are just impossible to post without during and other and different covering war crimes by Azerbaijan's Turks and terrorists. So please use that. And I think 3 or 4 days ago, Human Rights Ombudsman of Artsakh issued a new report on civilian casualties and what is happening in Artsakh with many factual documents and evidences. So this is not only this is not first time that it's happening in 21st century. I don't even touch the First Karabakh War in the end of 20th century. In 2016, we had another 4 days war, you remember, in Artsakh, and Human Rights Ombudsman's office also reported war crimes. And unfortunately, human rights community and international community was blind in 2016 as well. And I would say that this is very important argument, that one of the reasons that it's repeating is the silence and the blindness of international community, of those people who are who have committed to defend human rights in different areas in the world, to to start to defend Artsakhi people, Armenians in Artsakh, people of Artsakh, Armenians living in their homes for long centuries. So this is a very important argument. I would like to ask you to use that argument. 90% of all who came under control of Azerbaijani armed forces during 2016 war, their number was 30, but 90% of the 30 people were either executed or tortured, executed because they were Armenians, or tortured, or their dead bodies were mutilated. And all three are war crimes under international law. And I would say that, of course, Azerbaijan didn't prosecute none of the perpetrators, and they were heroizing themselves by putting their videos and photos into the web. And we and now the same. And during this war, the war that didn't have the name of this war, it wasn't coined, it's still ongoing. During this second war, let's say, we see the same things. We see the executions in Hadrut. You remember that video that two people, by the way, they were wearing military uniform, but they were not military. One of them was a 70 years old man, and they were tortured and executed. They were killed because they were Armenians. We see many examples. Some of them, fortunately, don't go to web, and we collect. And Mr. Babayan's office is collecting. Mr. Tatoyan's office is collecting and using this during their also close reports. When Azerbaijanis are putting the pictures in the web with which demonstrate mutilations of dead bodies of those Armenian soldiers' bodies which are at their control. So one important thing is that this is not first time. 4 years ago, the world was blind and silent. By the way, I met not dozens, but even maybe a couple of hundreds of people who are human rights activists, human rights people all around the world. And many people were saying, you know what, the conflict is still, now the conflict is not burning, so let's not make Azerbaijan fight us, human rights activists. And now I understand that this argument was not really one that works, because now they are killing innocent people, executions and so on and so forth. And I'm not, and I didn't talk. I don't talk about the cultural part of this. I don't talk about economic part of this. Thousands of homes and infrastructure damaged throughout all the Artsakh. And shellings are not only in capital Stepanakert, but in more than 130 communities in Artsakh. Capital Stepanakert, towns and villages. So all of them, all these actions are war crimes, and they are not only well documented, but also legally analyzed. And you can see this, the analysis both in Mr. Artak Beglarian's, Artsakh's Human Rights Ombudsman's reports, but also in some reports by Human Rights Ombudsman of Armenia. So please follow them and use the arguments and the evidences in their reports. One of the remedial recognitions issues is that we really face danger of genocide. What is this concept? This concept is about rule and exclusion. So when you have a situation like now we have in Artsakh, when lives of more than 150,000 people are at danger, this theory was developed maybe 10, 15 years ago to say that this is the well-established ground for recognizing, first of all, not recognizing, but secession of a part genuinely let's say defined part of any country, but also for recognition of de facto secession. In our case, I agree with Ms. Makuns. Indeed, this is not the case of remedial secession, but remedial recognition, because de facto secession is already done in 1991, when people of Artsakh decided to be independent from the Soviet Union, from Azerbaijan, and to have independence. And after that, de facto, starting from 1994, after the ceasefire, which lasted 26 years, de facto, Artsakh was independent, and the secession was de facto there. And now we are talking about de jure, let's say,
recognition of what has already happened.
Coining of this de facto secession. And by the way, very short comment.
Yes.
One of arguments of that is that they are targeting our culture. Azerbaijanis are targeting our culture. The Ghazan-Chetsot's cathedral, they shot twice at the very same spot. So they cannot say, you know what, that was a mistake, something was wrong, and I don't know. That kind of things happen during wars. But in this particular case, after 4 hours, after they saw that it was shelled, the very same part of Ghazan-Chetsot was hit by shell. So they are hitting our culture, and this is also not first time. Let's remember the Nakhichevan issue where the Juha Khachkars were destroyed some years ago. And this is also an important argument for remedial recognition as a part of remedial secession theory. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruben. I understand that all the questions that our participants have require a separate lecture, but we will do our best to zip the answers in a couple of minutes only, in the hope that this will help you to you and our audience basically online in the social networks to go and do additional research and find more details of what our panelists are talking about today. Next on my list, I have Rebecca. To unmute yourself, please, and ask the question you have.
Yes, hi, I'm Rebecca from Boston. And actually, my question is for you, Dr. Nilosyan, about how we can best help and support the humanitarian efforts that AGBU has during this war.
Thank you, Rebecca. I'll try to set an example of a quick answer to a question. I think I will have 4 points, but before, let me step back and say that from day one of the aggression by Azerbaijan, supported by Turkey and mercenaries in a couple of different countries against the Republic of Artsakh and Armenia, AGBU has stepped in. The Central Board has made a statement and started shoring up resources, including soliciting donations from the worldwide membership to support the most immediate needs of the governments of Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh in the fight against, fight against terrorism. I think this is how we can frame it as of now, because the genocidal policy leaves us no choice of different words. I think to answer your question real quick, Rebecca, I'll have only 4 key points. The first one, we expect both our members, worldwide members of the AGBU, and the friends of our members to inform your friends, to go talk with local politicians and inform them, raise awareness about what is going on and how they can speak up. They can stop being blind, and they can help in the fight of Armenians against terrorism in the mountains of South Caucasus. The second one for our members and friends of our members is to engage in social media. Engage not only those that you comfortably agree with, but also those that you think you can convince of the need to stop being blind. The third one is probably work with your networks to raise donations, either to the efforts done by the AGBU or those championed by the All Armenia Fund. Obviously, not to forget that the AGBU and All Armenia Fund have been working hand in hand, including for matching donations up to 10 million. I think it ended last week. We already matched the 10 million, but this obviously continues. So raising donations is a good way of spending your energy. And last but not least, those that have access to international media, go to your contacts in the international media and write information articles to raise awareness of what is happening here, in the hope that this will be knocking on the doors of local politicians to create the momentum of awakening our friends and the friends to be to engage and stop the war actually that is happening in Nagorno-Karabakh. I am under the impression for the past 3 weeks or so that not everyone is duly acknowledging the scope and the gravity of the war that is unfolding in Nagorno-Karabakh, and probably doing this awareness raising individually, not only in terms of organizations, such organizations as AGB obviously being the first, but also it requires some individual efforts to basically do the homework that we all need. I think this wraps up what I think that you, the YPs, and the worldwide membership of the AGBU has to do in this common war effort. Obviously, I would not spend time explaining what the AGBU has been doing in the past 3 weeks, because I'm sure that we will submit public records of what we have been doing in the war efforts after the week 3. Hopefully I answered your question, Rebecca, and with that I will turn to Mariam, I think, next on my list to ask a question. Thank you, Rebecca. Mariam, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Mariam from Seoul, South Korea, and I would like to ask a question to Mr. Koginian. Given your past experience, what are the best fundraising practices on social media? Thank you.
Hello, thank you. So, with a small group of Armenians, we started different fundraising programs, and the first one is like leveraging the company's donation matching program. The way it works is like many companies offer the matching program, which means like if employee donates X amount to non-profit organization, then company matches 100% or sometimes even 200% up to a certain limit. We encourage all such employees to join the program, to use all their limits, also work with our co-workers, friends, who agreed with our cause and help us to raise more money. The second one is like leveraging the social platforms like Facebook, GoFundMe, set up a fundraising there, share with larger groups, involve not only Armenians, but also non-Armenians who support us. This program becomes so successful that even many people started like personal matching program. They raise a certain amount and match from personal funds. The last piece, which is like, it sounds small, but right now every dollar matters, is like using Amazon Smile, which the way it works is like 0.5% of every qualified purchase will go to your chosen profile organization. And many people right now are using Amazon, purchasing from Amazon because of COVID. And I will recommend everyone, please set up that. We have instructions posted everywhere. I'm gonna post this again today on my profile. So set up this, and all the purchases, 0.5% will go to Armenian Fund. And there are a bunch of new programs that we are coming up. It's still in the planning phase, and we're gonna announce them like in a couple of days. We should raise as much as possible because 22 days, Azerbaijan shelling Artsakh cities and villages, destroying buildings, hospitals, schools, and kindergartens. And Artsakh needs funds to recover all our infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, Andranik, for these quick tips on how to make every dollar work for our common effort in achieving the victory that we're all moving towards. The next one on my list that had a very interesting question actually to ask is Karlen. Karlen, please unmute yourself and step up.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Karlen. I'm from Moscow. And my question is to Ms. Makuns and probably also to Mr. Babayan. So what's Armenia's main message to the diaspora, and what should we concentrate our efforts on? What are the most urgent needs diaspora can deliver? Thank you.
Lilith, if you can go first, and then we'll ask Mr. Babayan to step up.
Thank you, Karlen. Thank you so much for the question. I think the Armenians in diaspora have a lot to do. Of course, with the help of the government of Armenia and with the embassies present and working in those countries. Well, the main message is to deliver to the countries you live in is that, of course, those countries cannot intervene by assisting Armenians in Artsakh with the weapons to defend themselves. But what they can help with to defend Armenians in Artsakh is recognize Artsakh. That's the defense mechanism, and that's why we call it remedial recognition, because that's the way that they can help Armenians defend their right to live in their own homeland, defend their right to exist generally. That's the main message. And we need to acknowledge that in July earlier this year, when there were fights in Tavush region in Armenia, Azerbaijan apparently reckoned and assessed its own power and figured out that there might be a problem. And that's why the Turkish engagement is also related to this. So, but this is just a background thing that I would like to deliver. But the main message is we need recognition of Artsakh, and that recognition is required to defend the people living there and to defend their right to live and exist. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lilith. David, if you want to add your own message for the diaspora to consider.
Yes, we have long-term expectations and short-term. Long-term expectations are the following. We would like you to remain Armenians in the long term, to keep your national identity, and to be very devoted, dedicated citizens of your countries where you live. This is the most important thing, because diaspora is to some extent a genetic pool or whatever, it's a place where our Armenian DNA can survive a little bit, far from homeland, motherland, which is at the crossroads of this geopolitical, struggles and all those things. We have to think not in 5-10 years, but in a more distant, way, long-term way. So this is the most important thing, to keep your Armenian identity, your Armenian soul. This is very important, of course. And this is a guarantee that we will always have, enough population to say, very much educated, well-rounded, with well-rounded education, because we are a mono-ethnic state, but we are a multicultural nation, because there are a lot of Armenians all over the world. So each of you can bring some new ideas, some fresh ideas to develop our country in the long run, because we need this very much. This is about a long-term perspective. Of course, for this, you have to be somehow inspired by the fatherland, inspired by Artsakh, by Mother Armenia. This is why we should understand that we are one single entity, but somehow maybe cut off from each other by these geographical distances, political borders, etc. But anyway, first of all, keep your Armenian national identity, your soul, and be a true citizens of your country. There is no other way to help the motherland and not insult or somehow, you know, put under some pressure your own country and yourself in your own country. As to the short-term initiative, then it is, of course, very important to assist Artsakh and Armenia in public opinion, changing the public opinion in various, let's say, state structures, public structures, newspapers, even within the circles of your friends, etc., to tell about the Armenian cause, the real situation, etc., and do everything possible, you know, to help us to help overcome all the difficulties and challenges. Maybe it's to some extent your direct participation will be welcome if you are a specialist in some fields, for example, you are a surgeon or whatever, you can be of great help in here. So these are basically the most important thing. As to the recognition, of course, it's a very important thing. It's one of the most important guarantees. Maybe not the most important, but one of the most important guarantees of our security, because there are also other guarantees to bilateral relations, etc., which are not derivative from recognition. Besides, while talking about recognition, we have to see and look at this process from two different perspectives. International recognition and recognition by Armenia. These are two different things. International recognition is welcome very much, especially at all the times, at all the periods of our existence. Because if you are recognized, of course, it's additional guarantee. Maybe it's political, maybe it's not so, you know, real in terms of rebuffing the aggression, because we see how many recognized countries are now, they have just turned into failed states, you know, just crashed by foreign invasions, etc. So recognition is one of the most important things. As to the recognition by Armenia, then it is also a very important thing. But here we have to, you know, think and elaborate it in a very profound way, because it will be a turning point. It will be a point of no return to the past. It will dramatically change geopolitical landscape, political negotiations, everything, the Minsk group format, everything. I think that when we will feel that there is indeed a very dangerous threat, existential, already it's the enemy has crossed the red line, recognition by Armenia would be welcome, definitely. But it is the last resort, the last step, understanding that after this, there could be a large-scale war with the engagement of Armenia, and the territory of Armenia would be also under, you know, direct targets by Turkish and Azeri forces. This is why we have to think in a very profound manner, not emotionally in this aspect, because of course all of us want Artsakh to be recognized. Who is against that? Nobody. But we have to take into consideration all the aspects.
Thank you, David. This is pretty elaborate. I'll just want to cherry pick 2 points for our audience and the participants that Lilith and David have underlined, because I think that these are very important that we reiterate for better memory. First, that recognition is remedial recognition, especially, is a defense mechanism. This is a very important narrative to keep in mind in the publicity work that you do in your own communities. And second, about identity that David has just mentioned, I believe that the present aggression against Nagorno-Karabakh and Armenia is awakening those in diaspora that in the past were believed to have departed from their identities. So the war that lasts already for 3 weeks is also making the Armenians awakening Armenians and having them join the common cause that we have. And obviously, this is the shortcut to week 3. Next on my list, I have Diran from Madrid to ask the question. Please, Diran, unmute yourself, and whoever you're addressing your question to, please be brief. Thank you.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Diran from Madrid. My question is actually to Mr. Babayan. It's a follow-up to the recognition topic. Mr. Babayan, very practically and concretely, what do we need to do to get Artsakh recognized internationally as a free and independent state? Some practical tips of what we need to get done as the next steps. Thank you.
To maybe fine-tune Diran's question, David, what are the 2 immediate things that our members and audience has to know that they have to do for facilitating recognition? What are the top 2 things?
You see, recognition is, we have to divide again emotions from real life. We have to assess the possibilities of such recognition, because we don't have just resources to spread them in vain. There are countries where recognition of Artsakh is just impossible, and we don't have to spread efforts for this very topic. For example, United Kingdom, absolutely impossible. It is impossible to gain recognition of Artsakh in Ukraine. It is impossible to gain recognition of Artsakh in Georgia, in many, many countries. So we have to understand that recognition and presenting Artsakh to the local audience are very similar, but one is the beginning, the second is the end. This is why we have to understand, you have to understand the geopolitical interests of your host countries, your second motherland. What they think, what are their interests? Is it possible or it's not possible? Because it could be much more expedient to spend resources on other things rather than spread them on recognition and not gain any result. This was one of the maybe main mistakes we have been doing for many years. I always say about that we have to shrink and to have a very deliberate target. We have to know where it's possible and where it's not possible. This is why I would advise you the following formula. First of all, let your own country, I mean your host countries, know Artsakh. Let Artsakh be recognizable in your countries by different ways. Maybe assisting some, I don't know, cultural ties, semantic cultural ties, educational ties, bringing some people from different, places of Artsakh, from different fields. Somebody may come and dance, present our dancing, I mean, cultural exchanges, etc. Some other people may present something else. There are countries where we can apply a multi-stage recognition, for example, as we are doing in France and United States, because they are federal states. So you can gain recognition, for example, at the local level, municipal level, then go a little bit further, gain recognition on the regional level, let's say on the state level, not the country level, but on this, you understand, for example, the state of California, Michigan, and whatever, the Basque country. So these kind of steps are very much expedient to create a basis for Artsakh to be recognizable, for these people to understand, to like Artsakh, to feel some affiliation with this country through yourself, through all of you, because they respect you. They respect Armenian community as being an honest, professional, good people. And they should also respect their mother countries. So these are the ways we have to elaborate a very, real strategy to go further, because recognition, it's not an aim in itself. Sometimes it will be just impossible and senseless to, let's say, try to gain recognition, I don't know, as I mentioned, in some states, in Saudi Arabia, for example, or in Pakistan. It's impossible. Why should we spend resources on that? So my advice is just to make Artsakh recognizable, make Artsakh respectable. For this very reason, you have to be respectable, you have to be recognizable, you have to achieve appropriate positions in your countries, maintaining your national identity. It's a very long term, it's a struggle. You are struggling too.
Okay, thank you, David. So not only recognized, but also recognizable. Lilith, would you have any quick comment on this one?
Thank you. I do agree with Mr. Babayan with whatever he said. So we need to, first of all, understand what we can do in the very country that we live in. Whether it's disseminating information about Artsakh, about the issue, about the war that is waging right now in this region. To use the background information that in terms of history, in terms of diplomacy, and in terms of law and international law that was provided here. So this is one thing. Another thing is, of course, that a recognition is a defense mechanism, and we just need to deliver this message. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. It seems like we're all in agreement in where we're moving. Sahak, I have you on my list, unless your question has already been answered, whatever you had in your mind. Go ahead.
Yes, hello. I'm Sahak from Frankfurt, Germany. And my question goes to Ruben, and it hasn't been answered yet, because you mentioned the war atrocities committed by Azerbaijan. I mean, we don't have to go into detail to these horrific, horrible examples, but many of us, including me, have not real trust for short-term impact of international bodies, but still we need to work with them, to present them our facts. And so my question has two parts. So first of all, what international bodies have to be approached? And second, do you believe that the International Criminal Court can have a stand here and can deliver some results for us short term and also on the longer run? Thank you.
Thank you. Very important questions. So I will try to be short answering these questions. First, the International Criminal Court. International Criminal Court has jurisdiction over any war crime in two different cases. Case number one, the countries who are mentioned here, we mean Azerbaijan, first of all, and also Armenia, who can apply to International Criminal Court, should have give their permission for general jurisdiction of International Criminal Court. Neither Armenia nor Azerbaijan didn't give that permission. So this way doesn't work. Second way, which can theoretically work, is the decision of United Nations Security Council. So your United Nations Security Council, notwithstanding of the position of the countries involved, can decide to send the case to International Criminal Court. This is theoretically possible, but I don't think that we are now going to talk about this, because this can be done only as a result of diplomacy and let's say traditional diplomacy. Let's talk about new diplomacy, where each of us are ambassadors of the cause. So you are ambassador, all our colleagues that are hearing us ambassador in their respective countries. So what the new types of ambassadors can do. So what people need to be reached. First, international human rights community. International human rights community is our main target. So we need them to make statements on what is happening based on evidence and documents presenting to them. So I said already that there are plenty of the documents, and you can find it especially in Human Rights Ombudsman's Office of Artsakh and Armenia. So reports during this war, reports during 2016 April war, and also different targeted reports by Human Rights Ombudsman of Armenia, not Artsakh. Second, academic community, especially those who work on genocide issues, human rights issues, international humanitarian law issues. They are also very important targets, because when academic community talks about the events, it's very important. For example, when we talk about Armenian genocide issue, Armenian genocide issue has had for a very long period of time success in many countries because academicians, because Raphael Lemkin as academician, because other academicians who in their monographies and their work and their lectures were bringing Armenian genocide, I'm talking about 1950 genocide, were bringing Armenian genocide as an example of this crime against humanity, of this horrible crime against humanity. So these two communities are very important. And the third community is politicians of different levels. Mr. Babayan was already talking about different levels of politicians in local, in regional levels. They are also important target for our ambassadors, millions of ambassadors in different countries who represent diaspora. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruben. I believe that we are a little bit over our time, but I also have some 3 people pre-registered to ask their questions to our distinguished panelists. So given the time limitations, I would just kindly ask our participants, the 3 remaining participants on my list, to quickly ask their questions, and our fellow panelists to keep the answers as brief but also informative as possible. This task impossible for the first round goes to Karin. Karin, go ahead.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Karin. I'm from Los Angeles, and my question is directed to Andranik. As it is, this war has many fronts on and off the line of contact. Cyber war infiltrates the social feeds of Armenians around the world. Can you please clarify for us social media algorithm tricks for ranking or relevance? Thank you.
Thank you, sure. So as you mentioned, we are fighting with our enemy, not only in the front line, but also in the social media. And each of us needs to actively use our profile, but we should be so very careful. So I'll talk about like very high level how social media ranking algorithms work and some tips and tricks that we need to use. First of all, like post gets higher rank and visibility in timeline when there are lots of reactions, comments, and shares on it. And the key point here, it doesn't matter whether the comment or reaction is negative or positive. Same with comments, it gets a higher visibility under the post if there are lots of reactions and discussions under the comment. So knowing that, so we need to be careful when to react and when to comment. So we shouldn't comment on enemy fake posts that are against Armenian interests. And we shouldn't react on enemies' comment or start a discussion with them. We should always write informative comment under pro-Armenian posts and comments, and if it's possible, do it in English, Russian, French, like other languages, not focus only Armenian. We need to react on pro-Armenian comments to boost the visibility. And the last point is, don't try to fight with enemy in the comments, mostly because most of their profiles are fake profiles and they are just copy pasting the same text. And this way, if we fight, we are commenting, we are starting discussion, we are reacting on their comments and boosting their post visibilities. So these are like 5-6 tips and tricks that we need to use for fighting with enemy in social media.
Very important tips and tricks, Andranik. Thanks for sharing this. I think it is very important these days. As you know, just to add here, the internet and especially social networks in Azerbaijan, including some messengers like WhatsApp, have been shut down in Azerbaijan. And whatever, by and large, whatever comment or post you see on the social network, those are either being generated in the troll factories or by people with immediate links to the government, in other words, on the government payroll. So save your energy and do not engage too much there unless you clearly know that that's a physical person outside of Azerbaijan that you want to answer. Thanks, Andranik, for these important tips and tricks. Robin, you are next on my list.
Hi everyone, so I'm Robin from Paris and I have a question for Lilith Makuns. We've seen that there are air strikes that are on the Republic of Armenia itself. We've seen also a UAV activity inside the airspace of the Republic of Armenia. So why, with that, why Armenia hasn't formally requested a Russian military support? Thank you.
There you go. We cut it to the bone.
Thank you for the question. Unfortunately, I'm not eligible to answer that question because the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Defense Ministry are eligible for the answer. I can presume that at this point, the military forces of Armenia are quite able to handle the situation at the moment. And that's the reason they're not applying for additional support. I mean, Armenia does not apply for additional support. But again, I want to highlight that I'm not eligible to answer that question. Thank you.
Maybe to add on my academic and irresponsible perspective to this question, Robin, I think if you browse the news timeline on a daily basis, in the past 3 weeks, there have been multiple reported and not necessarily reported phone calls between the leaderships of two countries, including on ministerial level, which implies that there is important collaboration going on, and at least the governments of two countries are on the same wavelength with regards to the depth of the crisis. But of course, it is the situation on the battleground that has to warrant a more formal follow-ups based on the bilateral Armenia-Russia treaties that we have since 1992, I think, or 1994. But this is, again, my speculation as an irresponsible academician. So, Lilith, sorry if I... but I'm more or less sure that it was in your head too.
No, thank you. Yeah, just to add, there are different points in the agreement where, according to which you are able to apply for assistance, for additional assistance, and I'm sure those things are being taken into account, definitely. But again, I want to highlight and agree with you, Hovhannes, that the bilateral relations, including with Russia, are we are in very good contacts with the Russian colleagues, and including with the first political leaders of the two countries. So if needed, that would be implemented too. Thank you.
Can you tell us more, Lilith, since you are unmuted already? Can you tell us a little bit more, very briefly, about the interparliamentary relations?
Of course.
Those are more flexible than the governments. That's why I think we would appreciate some new insights from your side.
Absolutely, my pleasure. So the parliamentary diplomacy is being used here too, because how we are doing it. We have different platforms and delegations we're a part of, and we also have friendship groups that are in direct contact with the parliaments of the particular countries. What we are doing is, again, we inform our colleagues in those parliaments about the situation and about the developments in Artsakh. We pass on to the message and our vision about the solution of the issue, and we of course we of course tell them about our expectations and the expectations of the Armenians, and why it's important to react for the security of the region and the broader region. I want to also highlight how we are in touch with them. There are official ways of addressing them, formal letters, emails, but as far as we also have direct connections and we have made friends with a number of parliamentarians in different countries, we also use those non-formal contacts to be in touch. And of course, being in touch with international journalists, the international media, and by means of interviews, delivering the developments in Armenia is also important for us. So we consider it to be a part of diplomacy too. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Lilith. And last but not least on my list is Hovhannes from Vilnius. Hovhannes, if you can step up and ask your question, unless that has already been answered.
Yep. Thank you very much. Yeah, my question hasn't been answered yet. And basically, my question is regarding the geopolitical situation that is currently evolving around Turkey. And Turkey is involved in a large number of regional conflicts. So we know it is an adversary of Greece, of Cyprus. It is involved in Libya, in Syria, and currently, well, in Nagorno-Karabakh, right? And a lot of countries are, of course, upset about this. So we know that Saudi Arabia banned all the imports from Turkey. We know how Egypt basically threatened to start a war with Turkey if they didn't stop their invasion in Libya. So my question is, are we working with these actors who are as upset as we are with Turkey, and then try to use the situation to our advantage? And this question I would direct to Lilith. Thank you.
Thank you, Hovhannes.
Thank you, Hovhannes, for the question. Yes, we are, because we are mapping the opportunities that we have and that we can use, including the countries that are inclined to support Armenia. So yes, of course, we're working in all those directions, and we're trying to also use the parliamentarians and try to do so that, to work with them so that those countries and those parliaments adopt resolutions condemning not only Azerbaijani aggression, but also engagement of Turkey as a third party, as a third country, not at all doing anything with the conflict, with the current conflict. Moreover, we are organizing also consultations with those parliamentarians and standing committees in the parliaments. So, for example, while working with the U.S. colleagues, we are trying to discuss the possible resolutions. What kind of sanctions could be used, and if it's possible to use against them. Of course, the implementation of the sanctions exclusive right of those parliaments and parliamentarians. But the working mechanism is that we need to work directly with them in order to have those resolutions and raise public awareness, international awareness, because we consider that's one of the ways, sometimes there is an impression that the statements, the condemnation, the resolutions do not do anything on the ground. I wouldn't quite agree with that, because that's a sort of a pressure, because diplomatic pressure, political pressure, international pressure is another front line of war, which we are trying to use with a full capacity. Thank you very much for the question.
Thank you, Lilith. Thank you, Jovanes, for your question and your answer. I think this rounds up the list of participants that had list of pre-registered participants, and I think I'm not the only one that have learned a lot of things with these answers. I want to give an opportunity to each of our 4 panelists to offer any concluding thoughts that they have for up to 1 minute, and then we will conclude. Maybe we can start with Andranik.
Thank you. I would like to ask all Armenians and non-Armenians who are supporting us, please donate as much as you can. Please don't do one-time donation and forget about that. Make it daily, make it weekly. Think about that you are buying coffee from Starbucks or tea from Starbucks, and instead of buying that, donate your $5, donate your $10 and make your own coffee. Please, we need this money, and use your network, use your connections, engage as much people as you can. Thanks, everyone.
And raise awareness. Do not forget to raise awareness. Ruben, if we can switch to your side for any concluding thoughts that you may have. You have to unmute yourself first, Ruben.
Just I would like to
unmute yourself is the top expression in 2020.
Excuse me? Yeah, got it. So, well, I joined the call for all our diaspora brothers and sisters to think how can they help financially, or raising awareness, or making their connections work. I was talking about human rights community, I was talking about academician community and politicians. I would also add the journalists, who are very important for the cause. And we need as much publications which bring Armenian perspective to the world as possible. So I pledge and I ask our diasporan brothers and sisters to think about that. How can they use their connections? Thank you.
Absolutely. And just to echo what Ruben has just said, think of your university classmates. Career tracks are unpredictable. Those career tracks may have landed them in a space that it will make it their chance to be supportive of what all of us are trying to achieve here.
So all of you need to understand that you are delivers of the content. Find the content and deliver the content.
Thank you, Ruben, very much. Also, thank you for jumping on board last minute for the panel today. Lilith, if I can turn back to you for any last and concluding thoughts you may have.
Yes, thank you. Our Armenian diaspora is indeed powerful. We have powerful lawyers abroad, we have journalists, we have businessmen, we have academicians. We have people who impact and who can have impact on a lot of people, including the politicians. We have voters. You are voters, and you can raise awareness, and you can do your best so that your word and your thoughts are reachable to those people who can take decisions. Even talking about Artsakh and Armenia does a lot, but using and finding those powerful people who can have an impact as journalists, lawyers, businessmen, politicians, academicians is one of the key things that could be done. And delivering the cause, raising awareness by means of them would be really, really effective. Together with whatever you're doing every day, by donating, by posting on social media, by giving interviews, or by just talking to your friends and neighbors about whatever is happening here. Thank you.
Thank you, Lilith, for being with us today. And last but certainly not least, David Babayan. Davidjan, if you have any concluding thoughts, please go ahead.
You know, concluding thoughts are the following: we have to be always united. We have to have some working connections with each other, because present-day technology allows doing such things. We have to maybe establish or give new breeze to the old, to traditional structures which we have. Maybe develop this kind of educational platforms, discussion platforms in the future. This would help us always keep contact and share our views on different issues. This is what I would advise, because other things are also very important. Come visit Artsakh, Armenia, somehow work in different structures. If you can contribute somehow, keep close contact with embassies of Armenia and representative missions of Artsakh. So this kind of practical ways, and start from something little, from the scratch, maybe, from the first level, so to say, from the grassroots. This would be the most important thing, and always try to avoid unnecessary complications in political fields. This means that if you start from the most important things, let's say, recognize Artsakh, we have to make such kind of demonstrations, it's one thing. Maybe sometimes it will be very much important, but try to start from non-political things. Use this to make Artsakh recognizable, as I mentioned, to show to your society that this is a normal state, Armenia is a civilized country, etc., etc. So in this way, this is my advice.
Thank you, David, and special thanks to you actually for joining us today from Stepanakert. And let me add and remind actually our participants and our audience that Armenian Virtual College, the AVC, which is making our panel discussion today possible, has a full lecture series by David Babayan, by Dr. David Babayan, to be precise, about the history of Nagorno-Karabakh and the roots of the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. And those are available for public access on the website of Armenian Virtual College. Thank you, David, for being with us. With this, I conclude my role as the moderator for today's panel, and I revert back to Tenny for the last word that she has to say. Thank you, everyone, for being with us.
Thank you so much, Hovannes. On behalf of everybody tuning in today in our global AGBU community, I'd like to extend a very special thank you to every single one of our panelists, as well as our moderator, Hovannes, for a truly just very informative panel. And I also want to extend a very special thank you to Dr. Zoran for helping us assemble all these panelists, as well as David for partnering with us from YP Northern California. And finally, last but not least, I want to extend a very special thank you to every YP that's on this call that helped ask our questions and really show the world that in our unity globally, we do have a lot of strength. And I'd like to conclude by formally announcing that we do have our next episode of YP Live coming up in a couple of weeks. It's going to be a fundraiser, again, focusing on current events. The fundraiser is called United for Artsakh, and it'll feature many special guests, and we hope to see you then. It'll be hosted by our YPs from Toronto. With that, we'd like to conclude our special edition of YP Live, And if you'd like to continue following our series, please make sure to follow any one of our AGBU Young Professional chapters from around the world, many of whom you met today. And with that, please stay safe, stay positive, and bye for now.
Achterluing.
Achterluing.